Hi, can I encourage people to find a place to sit down? We're going to be starting in a couple of minutes. Sound a bit breathy, doesn't it? Give people a countdown again. You just come and sit up there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, mine's working, I think.
Is that okay?
Is Nick okay?
Tony who did the tour,
We are now live, going on the YouTube channel.
Okay, everybody, if you'd like to just be taking a seat now. Grab your coffee and come and sit down. Right, okay, thank you. And thank you everyone for sticking around after the service to hear this presentation. And welcome, Nick. Lovely to have you with us today. Nick's been working with us, talking to us on and off over several years now, actually, but much more significantly in the last few months, really. So thank you also to Robin for his historical detail earlier in the service, which will save me having to go through all that. So thank you to him for that. So I'm going to pick up the story from about 5 years ago when we had a quinquennial survey done on the whole site back in 2017. And that identified a lot of work that needed to happen throughout the whole site, in the church, the halls, and in St Luke's house, amounting to about £200,000 or more amount of work. And we knew already, really, but we know that the buildings are in poor condition. They vary throughout the site. There are some places that are better than others. And sitting here today with it like this, it feels lovely, but there are lots of things that happen every week to make it all work. So we know that the buildings are in poor condition and not entirely suitable or fit for mission. So there are constant problems. Every week something breaks or goes wrong or has to be sorted out in some way. And a lot of the kit that we have got is out of date. So we stand at a point where we know there's lots that needs to happen, but also that the opportunities have changed too. So the world is a different place than it was a few years ago. There are different opportunities and different things that we could be doing. And so we want to make our spaces, we need to transform our spaces for transformed ministry. So technology has changed, our administration has changed, the way we use our spaces needs to be flexible for use by us and also by our community. We have a particular pinch point each week on Sunday mornings because we want our spaces to be sufficient, well equipped, and the right spaces for the use of all of our groups, children's groups and adults. And we have developing children and youth work happening here already in our existing premises, and we want to make sure that going forward there are always enough spaces for the children and young people and adults on Sunday morning. So that is one of our key things that we want to get right. Over about a year really, we've been developing a statement of needs for our church. We held a consultation back in December when we spoke to the whole church about what we considered to be the needs for the church, and people were able to input their ideas and suggestions. And since then we've also consulted with other groups that use the site. So in the week here we have various different groups that use the premises. We have brownies and scouts, we have AA, we have fitness groups, sometimes the premises is used for elections, all kinds of different people use the site during the week, and our own groups as well, our Cafe and Tots and our 60s Plus and youth groups and so on. So, and we have refined our statement of needs on the back of all of that consultation. And we've commissioned Nick to carry out a feasibility study of what might be possible and achievable and affordable to meet our statement of needs. And as that has developed and been tweaked over recent months, so Nick has been tweaking the plans to try and match those needs. So that has involved us investing in this. So in order to have Nick doing his work, we have invested funds in getting that feasibility study done. Also, one of our challenges here at St Luke's is that the site is not flat. It's on a series of levels. And that makes thinking it all through and imagining how the levels relate to one another and how you get disabled access to everywhere and how you might best use that slope. So we have to commission a new topographical survey to do all the different height points across the site. That also has required us to invest financially in moving us forwards. We've also begun to gather costs for heating and lighting, which we know also need to be updated, and particularly because the Church of England has a zero carbon energy targets for 2030 to be entirely carbon neutral. That's another challenge to build into it all. So as well as that, we've been considering our assets, the different parts of the site that are potentially worth money and might be worth selling. So we've been making some inquiries about that kind of thing and getting quotes and valuations on different parts of the site, should that be necessary to sell things. So what I'm trying to say is that although we've been investigating all of this and looking at our needs and developing plans, we are not being idle. We have been doing various bits of work to do with all of that, and at the same time trying to do maintenance and updating work to improve what we've currently got. So over this period we've done work in the Miss Coppin room, which is unlikely to be very much affected by these plans. So we've also improved the foyer, we've improved the office. So projects have been going on that we've been able to afford and have improved the site over that time as well. We've also updated our audio-visual systems. So this has been a gradual doing what we can as we go along, as well as forming bigger plans for the future. So what we really want is to have sort of cheaper and more eco-friendly buildings. We want to update our buildings and our whole site if as much as possible within the existing footprint, because that is a much cheaper option than knocking it all down and starting again. So much of what we've been doing is to think how we could best use the spaces we already have, but there will be, as Nick will explain in a minute, some bits and pieces that perhaps need adding on and demolishing as we go along. So today what we're doing is we're sharing progress and provisional plans. Before we can do anything at all, we will have to take our plans to the Diocesan Advisory Council. So the plans that you will see today, and Nick will set out in a minute, are as far as we've got. And we would like to then take those plans to the council to say, this is what we're thinking, this is what we're proposing, what do you think? As we've heard before, and as Robin pointed out earlier, when big changes were done to this building 30 years ago, it took 10 years, in fact, to go through all the process because of objections and difficulties with the listed status of the building and all that kind of stuff. So we do want to get their approval. And then eventually we will have to go through a Church of England faculty process as well in order to make it all happen. So this is as far as we've got so far. We've tried to take on board everything that people have said so far in terms of what they consider the needs of the church to be and how we might best meet those needs. And then the plans that Nick is going to share with us any minute now, I know you're dying for me to get it out of the way and for him to come and explain it all, are in response to all that has been considered and thought about and deliberated on so far. So I'm not sure I need to say much else at the moment, Nick. So over to you. So welcome.
Thank you. Right. Good. Correct Robin slightly. I'm not the diocesan architect. I'm on the diocesan advisory committee, which advises on church buildings, and I'm that rare breed of architect who choose to work on churches. These are some of my churches. I think churches have a really important role in mission and ministry. When you get it right, it really helps the church go forward. And this project of yours, I think, is very much about bringing people into this building, letting them see your fellowship, letting them see who you are and what you're about, and helping people into the life of the church. And also about children, because after all, children are the future of the church, and it's been lovely today to see all of the children around the place. Okay. I'm also very pleased to be here because I had a car crash going to a church about 3 weeks ago. Between that and Gareth with COVID, we're not doing very well. But never mind. Robin's gone through a lot about the history of the church. A generation ago, your church really was one of the forerunners of how to reorder a church. That's why it turned into a cour célèbre and consistory court and the works. And still, people like me look at the judgment on that case when we're arguing the case for new church reorderings. It was a really important at that time, it created a set of buildings fit for your mission and worship. But things move on. And as has been said, we've now reached that point when the accommodation is in need of upgrading and repurposing. It needs to be upgraded if your church is to thrive and meet the needs of the 21st century and the challenges of climate change. This is a hand sketch plan of the church and halls existing. We haven't got a really good set of plans of the church. You'll see surveyors going around the building shortly who are going to be measuring it up, and then we'll have CAD plans of this. But if I just point out, we are here in the church. Here's your main hall, the entrance foyer, Mrs. Coppin room, and the old nursery, just to sort of key you in. One of the big problems in the church is there's no direct route from your entrance hall through to the Mrs. Coppin room and the old nurseries. You have to go through the halls. And your toilets are getting rather tired. And the kitchen serves the hall well, but it doesn't really serve your servery here or the entrance area. We've looked at a number of alternative schemes with the buildings group, and what I'm showing today is the sort of recommended feeling of the master plan as it stands at the moment. Things will evolve. We're here to listen. We're here to understand the needs, and it will develop more from this point. And I'm very likely to end up talking to you once or twice more before we get this project finished. The new scheme involves a new large kitchen off the entrance hall. It involves new toilets and a new creche and nursery, which are on the back of the old halls, and additional meeting rooms. The first phase would be an extension. This allows everything to move forward. And this would be the creche. Am I getting a light? Yes. The creche, the kitchen extension, a new lobby, and toilets. They would all be built whilst the rest of the life carries on exactly as in the church. So we would build these all separately. And then on completion, the kitchen would move to the new enlarged kitchen. There would be a creche off it, all the way through. And the toilets would replace the kitchen, and there would be a large disabled toilet, hopefully with adult changing facilities and a shower. So there would be a number of toilets in this area which would serve both the church and the main halls in different ways. Mrs. Coppin room really stays unchanged, as would the old nursery at this stage. The entrance foyer would be upgraded in this first phase. At the moment, the entrance is dark and it's dulled by the opaque skylights. There's a little bit of work to do on the roof, and we could replace the opaque skylights with glass ones, so you would look up to your rather magnificent window at this end of the building. This is a church I did in Southsea where we did a very similar thing. And the entrance we see is the hub of the renewed church. It would be a place for cafes, for people to come in and out. You would have a kitchen serving into it as well as into the hall. This is the Manor Cafe in Tunbridge Wells, in Christchurch in Tunbridge Wells, which is a very similar facility we did a few years ago. And this is a very early sketch of what this would look like, with some fixed seating in your way-throughs, where your library is at the moment, and a new set of large glass doors at the far end, which would lead straight out into your rather lovely garden, which is a hidden treasure here that you can't really see or appreciate. There would be space for small areas for counselling and quiet meetings in this foyer. So, sorry, I come that. At the end of this phase, we would also extend the foyer out under the canopy, so gaining more space, so it's a larger area, and give you access through the doors over there into the church. There could even possibly be a canopy coming forward if money allows, so you don't have the yew tree berry problem that you have at the moment in winter. To free up St Luke's House, the office may temporarily need relocating. I think you might be starting to do this anyway, into the vestry. But in time, in the corridor, a toilet and a little mini kitchen could be added to make this more of an independent meeting room. And there's a set of drains just outside, so it's easily accessible. And there could be some escape doors put either side of that window to get out of the church for fire reasons, and also to give you access out towards the garden. Importantly, we would need to do some upgrading of this worship space. You've got a blown heating system, which is slightly better than I expected today, but it is noisy. But if you're going to encourage more use of this space, it's important that it is a warm and inviting space. And we're suggesting at the moment that we put an underfloor heating system under the floor, and this in the short term could be run off the gas boilers, but as mentioned, there is a striving towards carbon neutrality in the Church of England, which is really important, I think, and eventually these could be run off heat pumps or possibly even an electric boiler if electricity prices start to go down. Also important, if this room is going to be used for more activities, is storage. And we're suggesting that there would be storage cupboards built along the side of the church walls and the edges, where different user groups would have their cupboards and could be also used for storing chairs. We've done this in several churches, and it works quite well, especially if you put a sloping top on top of them. Otherwise, they get covered with bits and pieces. I know you've got fairly good upholstered chairs, but if you're going to reuse this space more, I think these chairs are going to be too heavy. You're going to want lighter weight chairs that you can move easily and stack easily and move often, and that would be probably part of the long-term budget. The lighting's not bad in this space, but it could be improved with more controls, and clearly music and drama is important, so we would be moving towards better LED lighting and more control over it. So back to the main plan. So you would have a improved worship space, you would have new hall, you would have meeting spaces, and you would have the spaces at the back. But you need more spaces for children. You need more spaces for Sundays. So once you have a warm church and you can move people into here, we can start to tackle the refurbishment of the halls and creation of more space. And the aim is a lot to do with creating that space for ministry on Sunday and hiring of the church in the week. There is work to be done on your roof of the church. It's got an old asbestos cement roof. It's still sound, but it is getting brittle, and it will need replacing. It's badly insulated, and the windows are very poor. They're very drafty. And we are proposing to put a new floor in the hall to divide it, to gain extra rooms, a hall downstairs and hall upstairs, but also moving the main office out from St. Luke's House or the Vestry into the building. The height may be limited, and we've done it once before where we've jacked up a roof. We've cut the steels, lifted them a little bit, and put them back. So that may be the solution. Be a lot cheaper than building a new building. So this is the plan of the first floor that we're proposing at the moment, with an office at the front, with a staircase and entrance so you could get to the office from the foyer easily, a lift to get you to your first floor, and then a big meeting room which could be split in two with an acoustic divider, an extra toilet and a little kitchenette to create another hall space for children's ministry. We're proposing to use acoustic dividing walls that slide out. This is a church in Hove in Brighton, where there's a number of these dividers. They've got the same challenges as you, with a lot of children's work on Sunday, and they pull these out and have different children's groups underneath. And we would suggest this is done in your hall, but they would still leave the hall as a bigger space underneath for Sunday, for classes, for whatever activities go on through the week. There would also be the possibility, once you've got this space, you would be able to pull down that 50-year-old, long getting beyond its expiry date, old nursery building and add new windows facing south on the hall. And we're also proposing to add a new kitchen and toilet facility at the bottom next to the Mrs. Coppin room here. A carbon neutral church is the aim. And by upgrading the fabric of the halls particularly, and the extensions would be built to a very high insulated standard carbon first standard, so we require very little energy. Maybe putting heat pumps on top of your flat roofs, possibly even deep bore heat pumps, but the studies to be done on this, and certainly probably solar panels on top of the new roof of the hall. You could help to make this church significantly more carbon neutral, which I think is our duty to strive for. As I say, we would be demolishing the nursery, which sits here in our proposal, and that gives us a chance to add some extra car parking, which is badly needed for the church, I think, and put some disabled spaces nearer the entrance. I felt that today walking around on my sticks. You would then create a space. We've left the Scout site intact. We've looked at this. It has a potential for development, but you then have to rehouse the Scouts. And it is a pretty cost-neutral activity. And there is probably some engagement from the church. The Scouts may offer the space on Sundays to help you to provide extra space for children on Sundays. I think there's work to be done with the Scouts, but at the moment the development of that is really marginal. That may change, but at the moment that is where we stand on that. the future of St Luke's may be part of this mix, but I think if you do that, it is quite important for the church to keep some parking around the back, so you can get in to the church on this side, feed the kitchen, and you might need to do a double driveway coming round the back there. So here's the plan again, reordered with your new hub, which is the entrance hall, your new spaces, and you've got all these different spaces for children's work and ministry. So potentially with the dividers down, 2 spaces in the old hall, Mrs. Coppin room, the creche in a room which could also double up as a meeting room. We've often done creches where they have seating with which you have toy cupboards stored under the seating so they can double up. A way through into the garden, a big new commercial kitchen which serves out into your cafe hub foyer space as well as through your servery into the entrance. The vestry meeting room over here, which could be another little space for counselling. Upstairs, you would can go upstairs down the side of the new bigger disabled toilet to get to another couple of spaces, or you would come up through the other side. The office at the front, a lift give access both down into the halls but also up to the first floor space. And then in the old library, some fixed seating and maybe some doors, and one of them for a little counselling space off the entrance, a welcome desk by your entrance point, possibly a covered walkway to go under the yew tree towards the front so you don't have the problems in the summer, and lots of toilets, always important in the church, and a way through into your wonderful garden. Altering a historic church is never easy, and it was spectacularly difficult when this was done. I think we need to listen and learn from people, and this will be a process of dialogue with the authorities. We have to talk to Maidstone Council for planning consents, the church for the permission, Historic England will be involved, 20th Century Society, and possibly the Victorian Society. So there will all be these people we will have to listen, and it's never an easy process. But this is the start of the journey, and with Faith we've done this many times, and I think you're the sort of church that will achieve this. You've got a lot going forward for it. So here are the questions, here are the plans. Rather than keep you all for a whole set of questions here, I'm going to stand by one of the screens, probably the ones at the other end, and take questions up at the end. Is that right? And run through the process. They are the first thoughts. We're open to hear and listen. Tell the buildings team, tell Gareth your thoughts about it. Have we forgotten something? This is the time to remind us. Get it put into the brief, get it moved on. It's designed to be in manageable steps, so financially it's not a big crunch burden in one hit. You're moving forward phase by phase to develop this, and it may be a journey that takes several years, but it's a journey which I hope the church will follow and help your life, your mission, and your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was very clear and explained it all brilliantly. If Nick stands by one set of boards, I'll stand by the other, and we can answer any questions that you have about it all. Hope you feel inspired. We do stand poised at a really exciting time in the life of the church, and probably explains why we're all having such a hard time. So do stick around, ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. But thank you very much for staying, and if you're watching online, you can watch it all again, can't you, and pick up all the detail. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.